Welcome to this explainer, where we're diving into the spending split, revenue versus capital expenditure. So, have you ever actually stopped to wonder where all your tax money goes? Today, we're kicking off a real heavyweight matchup to figure out exactly how government spending is categorized. You see, it's not just one giant pile of cash getting shoved out the door. It's actually a highly structured, carefully managed system.
Every single year, governments spend billions. Actually, make that trillions of dollars. But to manage an economy effectively without completely going broke, financial experts have to split the government's massive wallet down two very distinct paths. The central mystery we're going to solve right now is how exactly they draw that line. When faced with a mountain of public needs, how do they decide which dollar goes down which path just to keep the country running?
To figure this out, economists use what I like to call the ultimate litmus test, the asset and liability test. This rule is the absolute, uncompromising judge of every single dollar a government spends. It asks two very specific, very critical questions. Number one, does the spending create a physical or financial asset? Or number two, does it actively reduce a financial liability? Keep this test in the back of your mind as we go forward because it sets the ground rules for today's entire matchup.
All right, let's jump right into round one, revenue expenditure. Think of this as the everyday, totally non-negotiable running costs of the nation. It's the essential money required just to keep the vast, incredibly complex machinery of government operating smoothly on a daily basis.
But here's the kicker. This type of spending completely fails our litmus test. When the government spends money here, it doesn't build any new wealth, it doesn't result in any physical assets you can actually touch, and it doesn't pay down any existing debt. It literally neither creates assets nor reduces liabilities. It simply vanishes into the daily operations required to keep the nation moving.
To make this a bit more concrete, think about the stuff that just keeps society ticking. Revenue expenditure covers paying the salaries and pensions for millions of government employees. It's paying the heavy interest on past market loans. It's providing essential subsidies to citizens or giving necessary grants to state governments. Basically, this is the money used to maintain general services, stuff like keeping defense, administration, education, and agriculture functioning. Without this continuous spending, the government simply halts. This is the money that literally keeps the lights on.
And because it's all about keeping those lights on, the nature of this spending is incredibly predictable. It's recurrent. These are the relentless, unavoidable bills that the government absolutely must pay year after year after year. There is zero escaping the monthly payroll or those annual interest payments. It's just a continuous, unending cycle of obligation.
Okay, let's flip the coin and introduce our second heavyweight contender, capital expenditure. If revenue expenditure is the daily operator just trying to get through the week, capital expenditure is the visionary, long-term builder. This is where things get really interesting for the future trajectory of an entire economy.
And, no surprise here, capital expenditure passes our test with flying colors. Every single dollar spent here actively changes the government's balance sheet for the better. It either directly constructs a physical or financial asset that's going to hold long-term value, or it actively drops financial liabilities, like paying off a massive chunk of the national debt. Simply put, it is money working to build equity.
We are talking about money spent on constructing the future, acquiring prime land and building brand new government facilities, buying heavy factory machinery and cutting-edge equipment. It's purchasing shares in profitable companies or even granting strategic loans to state and foreign governments, which then actually become valuable financial assets for the central government to hold on to. These are long-term, material investments that secure lasting value for the nation.
Now contrast this with round one. Capital expenditure is entirely non-recurring. It's a singular, one-off type of spending. You don't buy the exact same plot of land or build the exact same massive hydroelectric dam year after year. Once the significant investment is made, the asset is locked in, ready to serve the public and turbocharge the economy for decades to come.
So let's pull back and look at this ultimate head-to-head contrast. Everyday running costs, which is our revenue, versus long-term investments, our capital. It's the constant battle of keeping the government running today versus building its structural foundation for tomorrow. You absolutely need both to survive, but they serve entirely different crucial purposes.
When we put them side by side like this, the absolute split is crystal clear. The litmus test tells the whole story, right? Revenue does nothing for assets or liabilities, while capital actively improves them. Revenue is that recurrent, year-after-year grind for salaries, pensions, interest, and subsidies.
Capital is the non-recurring leap forward for acquiring land, heavy machinery, shares, and granting loans. It's pretty much the perfect definitive snapshot of a government's dual financial responsibilities.
Which brings us to a final, pretty critical thought to leave you with. If a government spends entirely on everyday running costs, what exactly happens to its long-term future? It's incredibly easy for any administration to get caught up in paying today's pressing bills, but without capital expenditure, there's simply no foundation for tomorrow's growth. So I challenge you to look at your own local government's budget. Apply the asset and liability test. Are they just keeping the lights on, or are they actively building your future? Something to think about.